St. Thomas More, taking a stand for his beliefs. My person, St. Thomas More, was born February 7th, 1478 on Milk Street, which is in London, England. He got his elementary education from St. Anthony's School, which is also in London. He went on to study more at Oxford University with Thomas Linacre and William Grocyn as his teachers. Even though a photo of his parents is too scarce to find, they deserve some speech, and that is why this part of my report is dedicated to them. Okay, so they didn't really get famous until the death of their son. They were still important to him. His father was a judge for the court, and that made a big difference, and he helped More accomplish many of the things he achieved. So all in all, they deserve some credit in his life. During his time at Oxford, More worked on comedies and liked to study Latin literature and Greek. One of the first books he translated and, wrote was an English version of a book that Pico della Milandora wrote about himself in Latin. In 1510, the book More wrote was finally printed by Wynkyn de Worde. It was around 1494 that More came back to London, for he was apt to study law. He was around 16 then, and went to stay at Lincoln's Inn in 1496, hoping to become a barrister. He did in 1501, but he did not just immediately follow his father's footsteps. He couldn't decide between this monastic calling or whether he wanted to live a life doing civil service. While staying at the inn, he chose to become a monk and gave himself up to follow the discipline of Carthusians. After deciding, he went to live at a close-by monastery, taking a part of that life. Even after he became a monk, prayer, fasting, and penance stayed with him for the rest of his life. As much as he liked monasticism, he decided he had to do his duty politics-wise. Finally overcome by that, he joined the Parliament in 1504 and was wedded in 1505 for the first time. He had become good friends with Desiderius Erasmus, whom he met in 1499. Even though they lived far away from each other, they kept in touch and visited one another every now and then. They stayed friends for life. Together, they made translations of Lucian's work in Latin. When Erasmus came back to visit in 1506, they went to Paris to print out their work. In 1509, Erasmus came back for a third time and wrote Encomium Moriae, or Praise the Folly. He thought of More so dearly that he even dedicated it to him. After More joined the Parliament, he thought it was a good decision for everyone to make a decrease in opposed appropriation upon King Henry VII. That's where he was wrong. The king had gotten so angry, he put More's father in jail, and More himself was withdrawn from public life. John More was not to be released until a fine was paid, and that had made his son pretty mad. But undoubtedly, it was done. It was when the king died in 1501 that More became active again. The king's son, which was King Henry VIII, had taken his place and had made More an undersheriff of London. Opposed to this, he had given himself a reputation of impartiality and being a patron to the poor. Sadly, in 1511, More's wife died while giving birth to their fourth child. Miraculously, the baby survived. His wife had now birthed them 3 boys and a baby girl. They would all miss her very much, but hopefully this would be the end to any of their tragedies. More married again not too long after that to Dame Alice. Alice herself had been a widow as well. Well, if you could call More a widow. Anyway, Alice did not mind children, and she accepted them unreluctantly with opened arms. More went with the delegation to Flanders to help stop fights about the wool trade in 1515. It was after this that he wrote the book Utopia. Utopia was a place made up by him that was like heaven. Everything there was made to perfection and nothing went wrong. In 1517, More went with the king and court to the field cloth of gold. He was made one of the privy councillors in 1518, which was very good, and was knighted in 1521. He had made the king happy, and that was all he pretty much needed to stay alive. But unlike Utopia, not everything turned out happy and perfect. More had started doing things that King Henry did not like at all. For example, he did not marry Catherine of Aragon to him, for she was already married to Henry's brother. "It is not right to take someone's wife, especially your own brother's," he said. It was that probably sealed his death. People even say now that King Henry was thinking right then about beheading him. Next, he resigned from work and the law of court, saying that he was not feeling well these days. In 1533, he also refused to come to the coronation of Anne Boleyn in June. He was even on the list of people who the court thought was having complicity with Elizabeth Barton, the nun of Kent. I guess the king didn't hate him too much then, because he wouldn't do something of the sort till More's name was off that list. In April 1534, he would not swear to the Act of Secession or the Oath of Supremacy. It was this final act that sealed his death. King Henry hated More so much now. He couldn't believe what he was doing anymore. He couldn't stand being denied anymore. So, he sentenced More to the Tower of London. More's final words were, "The king's good servant, but God's first." And with that, St. Thomas More was dead. His death was July 6th, 1535. This is the very site where More was beheaded. Still standing after all these years, can you believe it? More's death was July 6, 1535. Still to this very day, we should honor and praise him for what he did and what he believed in. And personally, I think we should celebrate his martyring deeds. Don't you? This was the castle that More was beheaded at. Even though you can't really see it, the Tower of London was more on the southeast side than anywhere else. Pope Pius XI was the person who canonized More. He thought More should be respected for his deeds, and so it was to be. The amazing thing is, though, that More's sainthood awaited him 300 years after his death. Unbelievable, eh? Because of him, that's why we know More as St. Thomas More. If it weren't for Pope Pius, More would probably be long and forgotten by now. To give you a brief understanding of why I chose St. Thomas More as my person, is because our family actually goes to the church St. Thomas More. My dad is a knight, one of the Knights of Columbus that is, and he really inspired me to do more because he's really into our religion, which is Catholic by the way. From my report, I hope you could tell that St. Thomas More was a great man indeed. These are the credits for my story. The Life of Thomas More by Peter Ackroyd. Utopia by Thomas More. Encyclopedia Americana by Meyer Nauvoo. Britannica by Jacob Safara and Ilan Yeshua. The St. Thomas More website by Rob Hubbard. The Life of Sir St. Thomas More by Anina Jokinen. I hope you enjoyed my project and thank you for watching.